Ms. LaShana Harris is an investigator with the Caddo Parish DA's office. Hey, Ms. LaShana, welcome to Keel. How you doing this morning?
Doing well. How are you?
Well, let's start with Start to Believe. What is this impetus by the Caddo DA's office and you at sort of the vanguard of this? Tell us about Start to Believe. What is that and how's it going to help folks out?
Okay. Well, Start by Believing is a public awareness campaign designed to end the cycle of silence and to change the way that we respond to sexual assault. It was designed to encourage people to start from the orientation of believing when someone discloses sexual assault victimization, as opposed to starting with the assumption that the victim is lying.
Ms. LaShana, you said a second ago is that the way we respond to sexual assault.
Yes.
Who is we? The public? You at the DA's office? The police? Who exactly is that?
Everyone that you just spoke of. I think the way that everyone responds to sexual assault victims can have an impact on that victim.
Well, let's start with the people in charge. How could the DA's office, how could the Shreveport police, how could they improve?
One of the things we want to do, like I said, when someone comes to, say, the police department and discloses that they've been sexually assaulted, we want to take the approach that we start by believing them. Now, that doesn't negate the fact that the police department has to do an investigation, a thorough investigation, but we want to let them know that we'll start by believing you and we'll do our due diligence to decipher what the outcome is.
Let me tell you this, because I've done a little work in this field many years ago, and often the victims will be asked, what were you doing down there? What were you wearing? What were you thinking going into that neighborhood or going into that hotel room? Those are some of the things you say that further traumatizes the victim, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And that's why we have to be careful on how we approach people who are strong enough to disclose this information to us. A lot of times we call it victimization, blaming the victim. So we need to not victim blame, but hear their story, not point the finger at them as to why were you there, what did you have on, but let me hear your story, let me understand what happened, and let's go from there.
And I often told people this, you know, when a bank teller comes to you and said they were robbed, you don't ask them, well, why did you have the drawer open?
Exactly.
You know, that this is the one crime where you start with those questions. Let me ask you this too. We really want people to come forward if they've been victims of sexual abuse. Are we making headway on that front?
I believe that we are. It's a very sensitive and delicate subject for those who have been, we'll say, survivors of sexual assault. And one of the ways that we can start encouraging them to come forth even more is with this Start by Believing campaign, where we start by the simple fact of believing them when they tell us that they've been sexually assaulted.
There's some really interesting points on the website, startbybelieving.org. It gives you some things you should say to a victim. Go over some of that, because that hits my heart when I think that's what they need to hear right here.
Right. So it can start by just saying something as simple as, I believe you. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm here for you through this process. You can tell me as much as you would like to tell me. Those simple things can make them a little bit more willing to speak about what happened to them.
So who, in fact, should say those things? Family members? You in the investigations unit? The police should say those things? Aren't they sort of corralled by the investigation itself?
I think whoever the person is speaking to should start by saying those things. Mm-hmm. If someone who's been sexually assaulted comes to you and says, I want to tell you something, then you should start by saying, I'm sorry this happened to you. How can I help you through this?
And it says avoid asking why questions. How important is that?
It's very important, because that goes back to what we talked about before about the victim blaming. If we ask them, well, why were you there? Then you make them feel like it was their fault. And no one who has been a victim of a sexual assault is at fault for what someone chose to do to them.
Ms. LaShana, it seems to me that most of what you say are the problems are actually in the area of are you saying it's in the area of law enforcement? Is that what you're telling us?
No, I'm not telling you that at all.
Because they're the ones with the power to investigate. They're the ones with the power to who are you talking to other than the people that you work with?
I'm also speaking about family members, friends, neighbors, church members. A lot of times people disclose to different people. And the key is when that person gets the courage to disclose to whomever it may be, that's where we need to start with the Start by Believing.
And you got a few events coming up, right? Can you tell us about those real quick?
Sure. So April 3rd is the national campaign for Start by Believing. That day, we will be at Huntington High School speaking to their school's Law Magnet program. And then on that day also, we're asking everyone in the community to join us on social media by pledging to Start by Believe, by using the hashtag CatODA or hashtag Start by Believing. On April the 11th at 6 p.m., we will be displayed at Centenary College for their Carry the Weight Candlelight Walk and Visual that is sponsored by Project Celebration. And also on April the 12th at 6 p.m. for the Shine the Light on Sexual Assault Glow Run that is also sponsored by Project Celebration in honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month.